Release the memo. I'm sure you're aware of this movement on Twitter by now, but what has me irked is that a bunch of Republican congressmen and senators are in full favor of releasing classified information to the public. Now, this should be an awakening of common sense in Congress. However, I'm not so sure. Now, do not get me wrong. I am a staunch privacy advocate, and I am in full favor of disclosing any government secrets that the public needs to know. So then why am I skeptical of this Release the Memo movement? It is because I believe the releasing of the memo would actually serve more malicious interests than good interests. Since these are the same people that voted to sell your internet data to advertisers, who voted to strip your Fourth Amendment rights with the Patriot Act, who voted for an illegal war in Iraq, who have also voted to use your tax dollars on miscellaneous crap using pork spending. And I'm sure that there are a lot more egregious violations that Congress has committed, but you get my point. So seeing these people, after all these egregious violations that they have committed in the past, are suddenly developing a conscience? If this doesn't reek of horseshit, I don't know what does. So what is the memo exactly? Apparently, it is detailing FISA abuses by the FBI and the Justice Department. FISA stands for the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. I could go into a much more detailed explanation of what FISA is, but allow me to put it in layman's terms. It's basically the law that allows the FBI and the Justice Department to spy on foreign agents accused of espionage or terrorism. And what makes FISA relevant is because it is the exact thing that was used to start an investigation into Donald Trump and so-called collusion from Russia in the 2016 election. Because apparently there is some dossier that exists that details the existence of a so-called PP tape of Donald Trump paying hookers in a Russian hotel that he was staying at because Obama was staying at that same hotel room and paid the hookers to urinate on the bed. Now, time out for a second. We go from inventing a conspiracy about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq to suddenly making up a conspiracy about a pee-pee tape. It sounds like the guy that's in charge of all the government lies decided to grant a wish to the Make-A-Wish Foundation for some 8-year-old kid who is dying from cancer and says he would like to invent a government conspiracy. But I'm getting off track here. Apparently the memo surfaced when Congress had just finished voting on the extension of the FISA powers. And as I stated earlier, the FISA powers were the things that were used to start the Trump investigation. The Democrats believe that this memo was manufactured by the Trump administration in order to get the investigation into Donald Trump shut down. So do I think the Trump administration is behind this? Absolutely not. I don't think the evidence goes in that direction. After all the hoopla of the Release the Memo, Trump still signed the extension of the FISA powers. Plus, according to an article in The Intercept written by Glenn Greenwald, a known anti-deep state reporter, he discusses 4 different ways that the memo could be released. And the very first way he discusses in that article is that Donald Trump himself could declassify it, because as president, he has the discretion to declassify any classified information. So if Donald Trump or his administration are behind this memo, why would he vote to extend the FISA powers and not quickly declassify this memo and release it to the public? Plus, if Republicans are so aggrieved by the violations of the FBI and the Justice Department with the FISA programs, then why would the Republicans and a few Democrats, let's be honest, would vote for a budget deal that has language in the bill that could be interpreted in a way to say that intelligence agencies no longer have to report to Congress and they should practically get a blank check to do whatever they want. This is according to yet another article from The Intercept written by Alex Emmons. According to this same article, this goes even too far for Richard Burr. Senator Burr is the chairman for the Republicans on the Senate Intelligence Committee. And this guy's no libertarian. This is the guy that actually wants to renew the surveillance programs. This is a guy that has worked to bury the torture reports. So if the language in this budget deal scares the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee and probably the best friend for the intelligence agencies, then why isn't this controversy the center of attention? Why aren't the Republican House members tweeting about this? It's because the truth of why the memo was created has nothing to do with government agencies abusing power and authority. The dead giveaway of this is that Rand Paul keeps grandstanding about this shit every time it comes up. Even though this memo is circulating the House of Representatives, congressmen aren't blind. They do see that Rand Paul bitches about government surveillance and abuse of authority, and Congress pretty much just ignores it. So then the million-dollar question becomes, why? Why did this FISA memo get circulated in the first place? The answer is less complicated than you think. The answer is, boom, the NRA. Before you start typing WTF in the comments, I will explain. The first news articles that talked about this memo were on January 19th of 2018. If you Google NRA and FBI and look to articles dating January 18th, 2018, you will find some very interesting articles. Apparently, the FBI is investigating the NRA for potential money laundering in connection with the Trump investigation into Russian collusion. So now the question is, why would they want to kill the investigation over this? Well, first of all, you can be the most non-political person in America and you know who the NRA is. It stands for the National Rifle Association. They are arguably one of the largest, if not the largest, lobby for the GOP. And the fact that that lobby would come under the investigation of the FBI for money laundering would require the NRA to open their books. So why is this investigation into the NRA being triggered? Because of this man, Alexander Torshin. Torshin is currently the deputy head of the Central Bank of Russia. And recently in 2016, a Spanish investigation connected Torshin with a Russian organized crime group called the Tambovskaya Gang, allegedly involved in money laundering. And apparently he is a lifetime member of the NRA. Now, I could go into further detail about Alexander Torshin and this investigation, but I'll leave the sources below. Because what is really important here is that it's all about the NRA. The fact that the NRA has come under an investigation and may be required to open its books is why the FISA memo got released in the first place. If one of the largest, if not the largest lobbying firm in the GOP's pocket comes under financial investigation and may come under audit, which could put all of its money under a microscope or even worse, freeze their accounts, this becomes disastrous to the GOP. Politically speaking, it could mean that GOP candidates now have to distance themselves from the NRA. Or in the worst case scenario, the NRA is unable to make donations to their selected candidates. With the midterms coming up, and the party that is out of power usually does well, it is a disastrous time for the NRA to come under investigation. And the dead giveaways of this scheme are as follows. As I laid out earlier, the articles pertaining to the Release the Memo movement did not come out until January 19th, while the FBI investigation into the NRA was announced in articles the day prior. The second thing that's got me skeptical about this is the fact that this memo was written by Devin Nunes. Devin Nunes served on the Trump transition team. This would be the equivalent of a memo being released by Debbie Wasserman Schultz that shows that there was FBI misconduct in the investigation of Hillary Clinton. I would probably put more stock in this memo if it were released by, say, Edward Snowden or Julian Assange. The third thing that really bothers me is the fact that this memo is only 4 pages long. So let's run through a scenario. On January 18th, 2018, articles come out saying that the FBI and the Mueller team have opened an investigation into the NRA for potential money laundering because of a membership of Alexander Torshin and his connections to the Russian government. The Republicans, realizing how disastrous this could be if the NRA is under investigation, decide to try and kill the investigation in any way possible. They can't exactly get Trump to fire Rosenstein or Sessions or Mueller alone because of the historical precedents of the Saturday Night Massacre done by Richard Nixon. The only other way to kill the investigation is to potentially expose wrongdoing with the investigation. Congressman Devin Nunes, seeing an opportunity to kill 2 birds with 1 stone by not only helping the NRA get the investigation off its back, but also Donald Trump. He then drafts a 4-page memo including all of the names of the people involved in the investigation that Trump's base doesn't like, and the fact that the memo is 4 pages long means it will be completed in time to be released the following day. Unfortunately, it's impossible to know the real truth until the memo is released, which is why I am in full favor of releasing the memo. But we don't really need this memo to be released in order to convince me that there is some downright malicious abuse of authority and powers within the government. And to all the Trump supporters, I cannot stress to you how much you sound like the 1992 Democrats. I understand you supported Trump because you did not want Clinton in the White House. I don't care what Trump does as long as he votes my way. It's the exact same argument that the 1992 Democrats made for Bill Clinton. Now, do I agree that the premise of the Russia investigation into Trump is bullshit? Absolutely. However, there should still be an investigation because it's transparency. I mean, think about it. What is the Democrats' worst nightmare about this Trump-Russia investigation? Their worst nightmare is Robert Mueller standing in front of a podium, wall-to-wall coverage from every news network in the country, and then as all the cameras are rolling, Robert Mueller says 5 words: Donald Trump did nothing wrong. What do you think the political ramifications are for the Democrats and the entire bourgeois left media? It would be oblivion. Donald Trump would wreck the Democrats in 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2024. But if Donald Trump and the Republicans manage to get the investigation into him shut down, what do you think the ramifications would be? Let me give you a hint. How would you feel about it if Obama did that? I'm pretty sure it would not only get Trump's detractors, but some of the more politically apathetic people to the polls. Well, what if the FBI charge him with some false bullshit? That's why we have trials. But I'm getting off track again. The point is, when your government decides to tell you this is something you need to know, your response to them is, I'll get it from a source I trust. Think about that for a second. I have such a low level of trust in my government that even someone like me who wants to expose government corruption and wrongdoing and is also a staunch privacy advocate is hesitant because it's being presented to you by the people that are lying to you in the first place. And again, consider the flip side of this. Imagine if we had President Hillary Clinton. Excuse me. Sorry, I don't know what came over me. Anyway, we have President Hillary Clinton, and a memo is all of a sudden released by Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, stating that there is bias in the FBI investigation of Hillary Clinton's emails or the Clinton Foundation. If you're a Trump supporter, what's your immediate reaction to this? I will tell you exactly what the reaction would be in the media. You would have CNN, MSNBC, and all the left-wing rags coming out to release the memo, while Fox News, Daily Caller, Alex Jones, they would go to the opposite corner and call the memo a bunch of bullshit. So now that you at least understand the greater picture, at least how I see it, you should realize that this release the memo hoopla is just a political football. So for the final time, I am for releasing the memo. However, I will be skeptical of the contents of said memo until I can prove whether the contents of the memo are true. Okay, I have a bit of an update. Since I've been working on this video, apparently a couple things have happened regarding release the memo. Apparently, the House of Representatives, or at least the Intelligence Committee of the House of Representatives, has voted to release the memo, and now it goes straight to Donald Trump for him to decide on the release of the memo. He has already spoken in favor of this release, so we are expecting the memo to be released to the public in the coming days. I will be doing a review on this memo, so expect a video on this in the coming days. However, the early fallout of the news of the release of the memo has been the resignation of Andrew McCabe, who was the deputy director of the FBI. And it is unfortunate, but apparently I have made a slight mistake in my video about the release the memo articles. Apparently, I said in this video that the articles started on January 19th, when in fact I can now find articles that started on the previous day, as well as the original tweets from the congressman that claimed to have read the memo. They all state that it was on January 18th, the same exact day as the release of the NRA FBI investigation. So in order to keep this video factual, I have decided to look into the timestamps of the original article that discussed the NRA FBI investigation and compare it to the timestamps of congressmen who have claimed to have read the memo. The original news article that came out about the FBI investigation of the NRA was originally released by the McClatchy, D.C. publication. It was released at 5 o'clock in the morning on January 18th, 2018. The earliest tweet I could find that talks about the memo is from Congressman Ron DeSantis of Florida. This particular tweet was released at 12:10 p.m. on the exact same day. So to be absolutely 100% sure, I looked up the government website and checked their calendar for January 18th, 2018, and discovered that the House of Representatives did not convene for their day until 10 o'clock a.m., and they didn't have their first recess until noon, which is most likely when the earliest tweets about the memo would have come out. So now that I've made up for my mistake and found the actual times that this memo and the NRA FBI investigation would have come out, I can now conclude the following. I can now conclude that by 10 o'clock a.m., when Congress would have first met to view this memo, the article about the FBI investigation into the NRA would have been out for about 5 hours. And as far as I've checked, any news publications that mention the memo, it doesn't seem likely that any of them would have reported on it before congressional Republicans had read it. So it is most likely the case that the memo was used as a political distraction to avoid the NRA getting caught in an unwanted spotlight. And just so we don't get confused about time zones, McClatchy, D.C. is located in Washington, D.C., as well as Congress. So there is no difference in time zones. I do apologize for my earlier error in this video. There is enough fake news out there, and I at least need to hold myself accountable when I make a mistake. So with that said, I'm Prometheus the Prophet, signing off.